Sorry about that, everyone. Hopefully Logan and Mark find their way here. The Wi-Fi at the hotel is not very good at all. So hopefully we can get everyone on here. But anyways, like I was saying, the Bucks signing of OJ Howard, interesting to say the least, or Bucks signing of Stars tight end Bug Howard, I should say. Interesting. Weirdly enough, they Logan hopefully will get on here. But the Bucks, interesting. They signed Bug Howard. It didn't really make sense to me with the Kyle Rudolph signing that we talked about on Friday. And then they draft Kate Otten. They have Cameron Brate. I don't know. It was weird to me to see that signing anyways. And then we also had the 49ers. They signed Gamblers defensive tackle Tomasi Laulile. So that is one where, give me a sec here. Logan needs the meeting ID here. So we will see. Got get that there. But anyways, Tomasi Laulile, so we will see that. See if that helps out their defensive tackle injury issues, which we just talked about with Eric Armstead and Mo Hurst missing the entire season there. But yeah.
Hello, we're back. We're back and better than ever.
Yeah, I know it's gonna be really weird on the sound now, but it's all right. Hopefully, the Wi-Fi here, I don't know why, man. It just kicked out, and it is not wanting to work the rest of the time. So I don't know. It works fine for the show on Friday, but as Mark knows, it is Columbia, South Carolina, so it's not the greatest place to be. But yeah, I was saying how I thought the Bug Howard thing was weird with all their tight ends that they have in Tampa, Rudolph, Brate, and Otten. But yeah. And then the Tomasi Laulile thing, I said that actually might help their the Niners defensive tackle injuries there. So the Chargers, they signed Stallions tight end Sage Surratt. Not much behind Gerald Everett. They do have Donald Parham there. But after that, I'm not really sure what they have. I think that's a good one. And then the Browns, they signed Bandits wide receiver Derek Dillon. Like that signing too. Going to a team that I don't think is very good after Amari Cooper. Donovan Peoples-Jones is so-so. I do like David Bell, they drafted. But I don't think it's that deep of a receiving core.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've got some room to improve for sure.
Okay, a couple of releases here. The Steelers, they released fullback Trey Edmonds. So they are going to keep it rolling. I think Derek Watt's still there.
And they drafted Connor Hayward.
Right. That's who I knew. I had someone in my mind. But yeah, Connor Hayward should take over there as the lead fullback. And the 49ers, talk about a negative ROI, return on investment. They released defensive end D Ford. They traded a second-round pick for him in 2018 or 2019, whatever it was. And now you're releasing him 3 years later.
Yep. The D Ford experiment is officially over.
Yeah, just could not stay on the field like a lot of the 49ers defensive linemen. Before we get into the extensions, have some other news, just general. COVID. Who in the world thought we'd be talking about COVID still? But we are. Kyler Murray, he's out for the next 5 days of training camp. He tested positive for COVID-19, as did Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll. So both are going to be out minimum of 5 days.
Well, Kyler can catch up on some film then, I guess.
Yeah, his off season just has been so crazy from when he signed that. I mean,
yeah.
The Bears, they have received trade talks about offensive tackle Tevin Jenkins, drafted last year, I believe, in the second round. Weird to hear talks about him, but it's a new regime. As I think it was Ian Rappaport said on Twitter, they don't care. New regime they don't care about guys they didn't draft.
Yeah. And you have on there, they just signed Riley Reef.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, other than that, what do they have at tackle?
Exactly. Yeah. They're not really in a position to be trading a second-year player that they just invested a high draft pick in for their young quarterback.
Trade him away so that Justin Fields just gets killed again this year, and then they'll trade away Justin Fields next year, and they'll restart again. Cowboys, they are concerned their free agent acquisition wide receiver James Washington suffered a Jones fracture in his foot, could miss a significant amount of time with that if the tests come through, and that is what it is. So that would leave CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup as your top two, and then it's something else
wide
after
open.
that.
Yeah, wide open. I guess they hope that Jalen Tolbert develops.
Yeah,
as fast as possible.
Okay. We got some money to get thrown around. Wide receivers getting paid again. Seahawks, they signed wide receiver DK Metcalf, 3 years, $72 million extension, $58.2 million guaranteed, $30 million to sign. That is the highest ever for a wide receiver. Similar contract, Niners signed wide receiver Deebo Samuel, 3 years, $71.55 million, $58.1 million guaranteed. So very close on these deals together. DK went first, and Deebo got less money than DK did.
That usually doesn't happen, yeah.
Yeah. But I agree. I think DK's worth more than Deebo is. Deebo does more, but I don't like him. I don't like him running the ball. If he's going to be a receiver, be a receiver.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's been talking about wanting to be strictly receiver, and I feel like that takes away a little bit of some of his value, his ability to be versatile. Plus, he has had had significant injury history, so maybe that plays a part in it. I don't know, but
they are still putting him at running back. I saw in training camp, and also he can make an additional, I believe it's $1.195 million in incentives for rushing. So if he hits 380 or more yards, He gets extra money, and also 3 rushing touchdowns or more on a season. He will get extra money as well.
There you go. Debo, you don't want to play that role anymore? How's this sound?
Yeah. But I thought it was funny. A.J. Brown put out a thing about the Titans. He was the only one that got traded.
Yeah.
On all the receivers that got paid. He was the only one.
Yeah. And after all the rumors too, and after Debo Samuel literally requesting a trade earlier this summer.
Yeah. The Patriots, they were throwing some money around too. They signed 2 guys to extensions this week. They signed defensive tackle Devon Gottschall, 2 years, $20.8 million. Extension, $17.85 million fully guaranteed. That's a very good deal for Gottschall and his agents. I don't think many people would have foreseen Devon Gottschall getting paid $10.4 million a year. But he's a key piece to their defensive line. And I think he's a guy that many people don't know about, but he was very good in Miami. I haven't really seen him too much in New England, but I remember him from his time in Miami anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And then punters are people too, y'all. Patriots, they signed punter Jake Bailey, 4 years, $13.5 million. Extension, $6.5 million, fully guaranteed. He becomes one of the top 3 highest paid punters in the league. I don't know who the other 2 are. I would have to think Johnny Hecker is one with the Panthers, maybe. I'm not sure though. And I couldn't tell you who the other one would be.
Hey, Bill, special teams at heart.
Yeah. You already mentioned it. You already ruined the surprise, Logan. The Bears, they signed Bengals offensive tackle Riley Reif, 1 year, $12.5 million deal. Nice deal for him at this point in the season. Bucks, they signed Titans wide receiver Julio Jones, 1 year, $8 million. So yeah, don't draft in fantasy, Logan. Don't do it.
No, you shouldn't. But this is what's going to happen, right? So don't draft him for fantasy because they're going to keep him in a closet for 17 games. And then in the postseason, they're going to dust him off. And he's going to hang like 3 touchdowns on my Packers in another heartbreaking playoff loss. That's what's going to happen. That's my Nostradamus.
Like Gronk in the Super Bowl. I mean, didn't do anything all playoffs. He scores 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. I was annoyed by that. I think because I had a wide receiver to score a touchdown or something like that, and Brady only threw to Gronk in the end zone. The Bucs' opponent in that Super Bowl, the Chiefs, they signed Seahawks defensive end Carlos Dunlap, also getting a 1 year, $8 million deal. That's a $6.5 million, I think, base salary. But yeah, I was just shocked. Carlos Dunlap, I don't know why anyone didn't sign him yet. I mean, yeah, he's on the older side, but he had 8 sacks last year, I think, for the Seahawks.
Yeah, he had a good season.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that he was still out there. So yeah, should help a lot filling that opposite role of Frank Clark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they have a nice little rotation there then too with Karlaftis.
Yeah, Chris Jones in the middle there.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets, they signed Saints linebacker Quan Alexander to a 1 year deal. Robert Saleh, familiar with him with his time in San Francisco. So veteran addition there at a position that the Jets can never seem to get right. Dolphins, they signed 49ers wide receiver Mohamed Sanu. I don't really have anything to say about that one. The Saints, they signed Dolphins running back Malcolm Brown, their second Malcolm Brown to sign with the Saints. The defensive tackle also there. Other signings, the Lions, they just signed Chargers running back Justin Jackson. So some depth to their running back room behind DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. And then the Steelers, we talk about punters are people too. Kickers are people too as well. The Steelers, they just signed kicker Chris Boswell, 4 years, $20 million extension, $12.5 million guaranteed. Very much worth it. Chris Boswell, one of the best kickers in the NFL, I think. As far as visits wise, the Panthers hosted Giants defensive tackle Danny Shelton on a visit. Broncos did the same with Steelers linebacker Joe Schobert. And then a couple workouts. Giants worked out Steelers tight end Eric Ebron and their former running back Devontae Booker. The Ravens worked out Vikings running back Wayne Gallman and Cowboys running back Corey Clement. The Cowboys, they worked out Browns defensive end Tack McKinley. And the Seahawks, they worked out Commanders linebacker Reuben Foster. Hasn't played in a game since 2018, but getting another shot, possibly with the Seahawks. Okay, AFC West Season Preview. So we had the Chargers up first. They re-signed quarterback Chase Daniel, receiver Mike Williams, tackle Christian Covington, and kicker Dustin Hopkins. All four of these teams in the AFC West did a crap ton of maneuvering and additions in free agency and trades. So the free agent and trade acquisitions for the Chargers, they signed wide receiver kick returner DeAndre Carter, tight end Gerald Everett, defensive end Morgan Fox, defensive tackle Austin Johnson, defensive lineman Sebastian Joseph Day, traded for linebacker Khalil Mack, signed linebacker Kyle Van Noy, and corners Bryce Callahan and J.P. Jackson. They lost, just talked about it, running back Justin Jackson, wide receiver Andre Roberts, tight end Jared Cook, guard Ode Abashi, guard Michael Schofield, offensive tackle Brian Balaga, defensive tackles Linval Joseph and Justin Jones, linebackers Kyler Fackrell, Lieutenant Owosu, and Kaiser White, and corner Chris Harris Jr. Really like the Joseph Day signing. And obviously Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson. Heavy on the defense this offseason. In terms of free agency anyways.
Yeah. And I mean, I like it. I think you get yourself a guy in Brandon Staley who's as good as he is, but it felt like last year they didn't have a lot of guys who can fit what he wants to do, especially up front. So what do? You go out and get Sebastian Joseph Day and Khalil Mack. There you go. Problem solved. Staley can kind of implement his defense a little bit more, and I think it's going to help quite a bit. And I think it's going to put the Chargers over the top this season. Every year they're people talk about how they're kind of overhyped. Well, I think this might be the year in which the hype is deserved.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that will show in my record prediction here. Don't really think many of the losses I didn't think were very major. Nwosu, actually, I think in my mind was probably the biggest one. Good third pass rusher. Schedule wise, week 1, they are home against the Raiders. Week 2 at the Chiefs. That's a Thursday night. Week 3, home against the Jags. 4 at the Texans. 5 at the Browns. 6, they're home against the Broncos. That's Monday night. Seahawks come to LA week 7. Week 8 is a bye. Week 9, they are at the Falcons. Week 10 at the Niners. That's a Sunday night. 11 is home against the Chiefs, at the Cardinals week 12, at the Raiders week 13, home against the Dolphins week 14. Week 15 is a home game against the Titans. 16 is at the Colts. That's Monday night. Week 17, Battle of LA against the Rams. That's a home game for the Chargers. It's Sunday night, and at the Broncos to wrap it up week 18. I will preface the records for all four of these AFC West teams in the fact that they all start out 3-3 because I have every single team evening up in their division records. So 3-3 is the baseline, and then 11-6 here for the Chargers is what I have.
Yeah, and I think I honestly think that's the way it's going to play out this year. I've said it past in previous episodes. Every team in the AFC West can beat the other on any given Sunday. That's how talented now these rosters are. And yeah, I think that's reflected in what the division standings are going to end up being. I ended up going a little heavier. I did go 13-4 just because I like some of their matchups and some of the out of division games. But I think in that range, that 11-13 wins, I think that's very doable for the Chargers. And I actually do have them winning the division at that record.
Same. So I actually have them starting off going, what is it, 8-1? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7-1. 7-1. I have them starting. So win against Vegas week 1. They lose on Thursday at KC. They beat the Jags, win in Houston, win in Cleveland. That's without Deshaun Watson, so win in Cleveland. They beat the Broncos at home on Monday night. They beat the Seahawks, go into the bye, come out. They beat the Falcons in Atlanta. They lose to the Niners on Sunday night. They beat the Chiefs at home. They lose back-to-back at the Cardinals, at the Raiders. They win back-to-back, home against the Dolphins, home against the Titans. Lose at Indy on Monday night. They beat the Rams in the Battle of LA on Sunday night, and then they lose in Denver week 18. I feel like for every one of these teams, I have like almost every game starred.
Yeah.
Because that's just how the schedules were. But starred games I have for the Chargers: week 1, key game against the Raiders in division. Week 2, that's a primetime game. Always star those. Week 5, at the Browns. Now, we talked about Deshaun could be playing, possibly, if that is still in the appeals process going on. So, could be Deshaun, maybe. Week 6, that's a Monday nighter. So, primetime, another primetime, week 10 at the Niners. Week 12 at the Cardinals. That's a pivotal game. I had them losing, but that could be a win to get them to 12 wins on my book. And then I have the last 5 games of the season for them start, because you got the Dolphins, Titans, at the Colts, Rams, and then at the Broncos. That's tough. I think all 5 of those games are going to be key matchups there.
Yeah, I don't know who ends up being in the NFL the mastermind who puts the schedule together, but they were really in their bag when they decided to pair up the AFC West and the NFC West, because those are really 2 juggernaut divisions. So having them be the matchup in the interdivision play is it's going to be fun, man.
Yeah, and even with mashing and putting them with the AFC South as their AFC division they play. I mean, yeah, the Texans and Jags aren't that good, but we're gonna get 4 games against the Titans and the Colts. So I think that is good scheduling on the NFL's part. Fantasy wise, we got Justin Herbert. Look, for anyone that follows the at FAA_bets page on Twitter, I put out 2 futures today. One was Christian McCaffrey to win comeback play of the year at plus 750. And I think you're getting a steal at this price right here. Justin Herbert will win the MVP. Now, this is foreshadowing what I'm going to talk about when we get to our awards show, preseason awards show. But I'm telling you, put out that's plus 1,000 right now on DraftKings. He's the, I think, 5th highest odds, 5th best odds right now. So still a good value price that you can get him at. And I think Herbert's going to win MVP this year.
Yeah, you said 5th best odds, but I don't think there are 5 guys who, there are 2 or 3 guys that I like better than him in the MVP race. I like him top 3. Yeah.
But yeah, fantasy wise, I'm drafting him if I can. It seems like I'm hoping that people don't see the hype yet. And then I can draft him, get him a little bit later than where guys like Mahomes and Allen are going. Austin Eckler. I used to hate Austin Eckler so much because he used to kill me in fantasy, and it was annoying. But he is your returning all-purpose and running back receptions leader from last year. So, yeah, he's going to be a first-round pick, probably top 5, top 7.
Yeah. And I feel comfortable with that too, especially since over the last couple of seasons, his availability has been much better. In the past, there were some injury concerns which sunk his ADP, but he's been a lot more reliable. And yeah, I mean, his role is just entrenched at this point. And I think you just ride that until he proves that he can't. You just bet on it until he proves that he can't. So.
And wide receiver, you're looking at Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Josh Palmer. Keenan's a guy I love. I tried to trade for him at the trade deadline last year a lot. And I don't know if I even got one person to bite because the Chargers schedule, the second half was so nice for his fantasy purposes. But yeah, Keenan's a guy I love. I don't really know where people are drafting him. I know I haven't been able to get him in any of the mock drafts because of where I am drafting. I have two of my leagues. I have my positions set right now, so I've been trying to do some mocks at those positions. Mm-hmm. Still waiting for my position to get figured out in our Moles Ball School League.
Nice.
You gotta put in an application to get into that, Logan.
yeah. I'll have to, you'll be my reference.
Just tell Pat. Pat's not. John Babington's our commissioner, so.
Oh yeah, I'll have to DM John. You down for a little expansion, John?
But yeah. Keenan's guy like Mike Williams. God, dude, I traded him away last year in Dynasty League, right? And blew up. The thing is, he hadn't produced. He hadn't until last year.
Yeah.
And we'll see. We'll see if because he got paid now. We'll see if he goes back to regular old Mike Williams or not.
Yeah. You're not going to like to hear this, but I'm pretty high on Mike Williams right now. I think that what the Chargers did this offseason speaks to how I think they value him. Kind of where they were sitting in the draft, it felt like they could have made a move to get one of the younger guys. Get a guy like Jameson Williams, Chris Olave, even Treylon Burks there. They were in a position to get, but instead they paid Mike Williams. They stuck to their guys. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, then Josh Palmer, not really fantasy relevant, but a guy maybe can look at.
I think he's a good dynasty stash. Like if you're getting in the later rounds in a startup or something, or if he's still available on your free agent pool. I think he had a pretty good, I think, end of the year last season where you saw some flashes. So if you're looking to bet on a guy, high upside. But in terms of non-dynasty, I don't see the value at all.
Right, yeah. I mean, Keenan is, I believe he's 30 now. And Mike only signed for 3 years. So could be, maybe. Tight end Gerald Everett, new to the team this year. I like it. I like his I don't like him as much as some other guys in fantasy, but if I had to, have him, I would be fine with starting him. Herbert seems to like throwing to tight ends. He liked Jared Cook last year, and I think he'll like Everett this year. A little bit younger than Cook is, by about 5 years, I think. I think Cook's 34, Everett 28, 29. But yeah, I think he'll be good. He's not going to be a league winner, but he can get you enough points to be a starting tight end in a 12-man league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I think, obviously the name of the game in fantasy is all about value and trying to find those guys at the back end who could produce at a high level that you can get at a bargain price. And right now you can get Gerald Everett really cheap. And he's a guy who has a consistent number one role at tight end out ahead of him. So anytime you can find guys like that, I think you take a shot in the later rounds, especially in, like you said, bigger leagues.
Yes. His only knock is that he is at best the fourth option.
You're right. Yeah.
Keenan, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler out of the backfield. Chargers defense. I like it. They are probably my biggest defensive sleeper this year. Getting Mac, getting JC Jackson. They're paying Michael Davis a lot to be on the bench at corner. But Derwin James is healthy. They have some linebackers now on the inside. Joseph Day, I think. I keep putting his name out there, and I think he is going to be a revelation for Brandon Staley this year, and to help free up Bosa and Matt. So, I am putting the Chargers in a top 5 fantasy defense this year.
Yeah, and I definitely see the path for that because, like I said earlier, they have the pieces now where they can let Brandon Staley cook, and he's such a really great football mind that now that he has the talent to match that, the sky's the limit. The only thing you want to be careful about is that schedule. Like you said, there's a lot of games where it's kind of a toss-up, facing the Chiefs twice, facing the Broncos, a lot of firepower going on. But I do think that Brandon Staley and the Chargers defense will be up to the task.
Top 10 at worst.
Yeah.
Kicker, Dustin Hopkins. I remembered the kickers this time. I always forget to put the kickers on the fantasy radar. But kicker, Dustin Hopkins, I like him. He was a guy I added late last year because my kicker just wasn't doing it for me in my one dynasty league. Added Dustin Hopkins, was very good, can make all the kicks. And we keep talking about if Herbert's an MVP, I mean, they're going to be scoring. So even if it's just, extra points, I mean, those can add up eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yep. You always want to attach guys to a high-powered offense, and I think Justin Herbert has the ability to elevate that squad to that this year.
And then rookies, only looking at one guy, Isaiah Spiller at running back. I heard them talking about him today on NFL Network when they were talking Chargers camp. He is a guy that's going to give them a lot of explosiveness. They said he had a 50-yard touchdown or 50-yard catch or something like that in practice. I'm Dynasty. I think he's a little bit of a stretch in Dynasty, but I think if you have a pick later I don't know. Maybe he doesn't last that long. I don't remember where he went in my couple Dynasty rookie drafts. He's a guy I liked a lot in Dynasty.
Yeah. Yeah, right now I've been doing some sleeper mock drafts recently. I think sleeper's a lot higher on them than I think people should be. And coming out, I was a little nervous about his agility, his ability to make cuts and things like that. His agility scores weren't very good. With that said, though, productive. There's definitely a role for him behind Austin Eckler. And like we've talked about, Austin Eckler's getting up there. The RB shelf life is low. So like you said, in Dynasty, there's definitely value there in Isaiah Spiller. That's why they drafted him. And that's why, if you're looking for bargain bin guys, but who with upside, who could potentially be a number one in a couple of years or less, guys like him, Zamir White, those guys come to mind as potential guys that you should be targeting.
Yeah, and maybe, I don't know if you'd want to waste a roster spot on this year, depending on how many spots you have in a redraft league, but Eckler gets hurt.
Yep.
Spiller's there.
Or, as a handcuff, if you draft Eckler.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs. Re-signings here: quarterback Chad Henne, running back Jerick McKinnon. They franchised left tackle Orlando Brown Jr., center Austin Reiter, and defensive end Frank Clark. Free agent signings, trade acquisitions. They signed running back Ronald Jones II, wide receiver Corey Coleman, wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, wide receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling, linebacker Jermaine Carter Jr., safety Deion Bush, safety Justin Reed, and they traded for defensive back Lonnie Johnson. And then losses-wise, a lot. Running back Darrell Williams, they traded away wide receiver Tyreek Hill, wide receiver Byron Pringle, not Brian. I don't know why I wrote that on the Byron Pringle. Wide receiver Demarcus Robinson, offensive tackle Mike Remmers, guard Kyle Long, center Austin Blythe, defensive end Alex Okafor, defensive tackle Jaron Reed, linebackers Anthony Hitchens and Melvin Ingram, corners Mike Hughes and Travarius Ford, and safeties Tyrann Mathieu and Daniel Sorensen. So the Chiefs had the worst offseason of all four of the AFC West teams. I mean, maybe they didn't get worse, but I think they did get worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously the loss of Tyreek thing. Yeah. And the thing is that you can't really undersell what Tyreek meant to that offense, because I feel like there's perception that he was only a deep threat, but he did so much more. Especially help freeing up Travis Kelce. With that being said, I think that there's been some overreaction. I think some people expect, the Chiefs to kind of like fall apart. And for the people that view that, I think you're underestimating how talented Patrick Mahomes is and how good a coach Andy Reid is. So I do expect them to take a step back, but how big that step back is, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I don't think their offense is going to be that bad without Hill, but the defensive losses were a lot, especially corner. I mean, I don't think they've had corners in years in Kansas City. I mean, Travarius Ford was their number one, was their best guy, and he went to San Francisco. Mike Hughes was a piece. Tyrann Mathieu was getting older and slower, so they got other guys there. Dirty Dan was a guy that was always a pretty good third safety for them. So, yeah, the secondary I think is very for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
They're gonna ask their first round pick to do a lot at corner this year. I don't know why I can't remember his. Out of Washington, I know that.
Yeah, I'm blinking on him too.
I don't know. Schedule-wise for the Chiefs, though, Week 1 at the Cardinals. I have the Chiefs 10-7 this year. So Week 1 at the Cardinals, I have that as a win. They beat the Chargers at home on Thursday night. They go to Indy and win. They lose in Tampa on Sunday night. They beat the Raiders at home on Monday night. They lose to the Bills in Kansas City. This time they lose to the Bills. They lose in San Francisco. They have a bye week 8. They beat the Titans on Sunday night. They beat the Jags. Those 2 games are at home. They lose in LA to the Chargers. They beat the Rams at home. They lose back-to-back at Cincinnati, at Denver on Sunday night. They beat the Texans in Houston. They beat the Seahawks and the Broncos at home. And then they lose to the Raiders Week 18 in Vegas. Crazy. They start 3 out of their first 5 are primetime games, Thursday, Sunday, Monday, weeks 2, 4, and 5.
Yeah. And I can't wait for that Week 4 Super Bowl rematch against the Bucs.
Games I have starred anyways. I have their first 8 games start.
Yeah.
At Arizona, who knows? That could be a loss. Obviously, the 3 primetime games at Indy, I could also see them losing. I had the Colts beating the Chargers at home on a Monday nighter in Week 16. So Week 3 in Indy, could see that possibly flipping. The Bills one is going to be massive. I don't know how that game didn't end up being a prime time. Like, we're going to get that at freaking 4:25 Eastern. What is that?
Yeah, that could be a flexer.
And then the Niners game, I think, is going to be a big one in San Fran. Then you got another prime time against the Titans with 4 games on the back end. I have starred the 3-game stretch home against the Rams, defending Super Bowl champs, obviously. At the Bengals, it's another rematch from the playoffs. I have them losing again, though. And then at the Broncos, Sunday nighter, Week 14, and then Week 18 at the Raiders. At the Raiders, that's a loss there. But yeah, 10-7, second place.
Yeah. So I am very similar. I have them at 11-6. And, we talked about the Chiefs kind of defense and their losses. The Chiefs roster reminds me a lot of the, let's say, about 2012 to 2016 Packers, where the offense was humming, looked good, and the defense was just a total liability. Now, they made some key additions in that end with their top picks, and hopefully those guys will develop. Trent McDuffie, that was the guy that we could.
I had the other Washington guy in my head for the Bears.
Kyler. Yep. Yeah. But yeah, like I said before, I think there's still going to be a team that people are afraid of. At the same time, I think you're going to see some games where they just look a little off because, again, Tyreek's not there. He's a big part of the offense. And it's going to be a different look, and it's going to take a little bit more longer to establish some chemistry with those guys, but we'll see.
Yeah. Their start to the season is brutal. Cards,
Yeah.
Chargers, Colts, Bucks, Raiders, Bills, Niners, by Titans. First 9 weeks.
Yeah.
A little hard.
Yeah.
But and Spags better have that defense ready, because it seems like every year they start out very slowly on defense, and then by November they pick it up and they like one of the best defense in the league. But they can't do that this year. They will get rocked if they start slow against these high-powered offenses. In the Cardinals, Chargers, Bucks. I won't call the Colts a high-powered offense yet. We don't know what it looks like with Matty Ice. The Raiders, Bills, and I'm not saying anything about the Niners or the Titans.
TBD.
But yeah. That's a tough start for sure. Fantasy wise, Patrick Mahomes, I'm not drafting him. No. Yeah. People are going to draft him. Some people, I don't think I play with any of these people anymore because I think most of the leagues that I'm in now, I have experienced players that understand what they're doing.
Know what to do, yeah.
But some people will draft Patrick Mahomes in the first round because they're stupid.
In my home league, it literally, I think last year was finally the first year where they, like, especially the older guys in our, so my home league is like my friends and my dad's friends. And it usually takes the older guys a little time to, catch up and be like, hey, actually, you're better off kind of just waiting on quarterbacks half the time.
They were drafting McNabb in the first round in 2015.
Right. Yep.
Running backs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Ronald Jones. I don't like either of them. It just CEH has not been the guy, and I think with Rojo signing, there's not going to be a clear division of care. So, and plus CEH has fumbling issues too.
Yeah, it's a crowded backfield, but it's also very underwhelming. So yeah, I'm not touching it.
Yeah. Wide receivers, Juju, Mecole, and MVS. Are you drafting your former Packers boy, MVS?
If I'm being honest with myself, yeah. Like I think him and Juju Smith-Schuster, I think one of those guys is going to hit. At least in a decent fantasy way, to where like you can get some value from them. And if I'm going to pick which of those guys at where their current ADPs are and where you can get them, I'm picking MVS because he's more fit to replace that Tyreek role. Juju is sort of that short intermediate game. They already have Travis Kelce for that. So I do like the Juju signing. I think he will carve out a bit of a role, but if you're swinging for the fences in the late rounds, which is where these guys are, I honestly, I do like the fit with MVS. It is one of my good fits in terms of signings this offseason.
Look, I've talked about how much I don't like Mecole Hardman many times on the show, even as a former Georgia Bulldog. He is one of the few Georgia guys that has not worked out in the NFL so far. But I think this year it will, because they drafted him to be Tyreek. That's exactly what they drafted him to be. I think that's what you're going to see him in that role. He's not going to be Tyreek. He's going to be Mecole, but it's going to be similar. They have similar builds, similar speed. Think that's going to be the most fantasy productive wide receiver. The Juju thing, he'll be all right, and I think Pat Mahomes will elevate him, but The issue with Juju is I've seen it before. He's not a number one receiver, and that's what the Chiefs brought him in to be. So he wasn't number one in Pittsburgh when they wanted him to be that, and I don't think it's gonna. I think it's gonna be the same in Kansas City. He's not gonna be able to be the guy when he's going up against the number one corners of each team. And you look at the number one corners in the division, you're going up against J.C. Jackson against the Chargers. You're going up against Pat Surtain with the Broncos. And the Raiders, Trayvon Mullen, I guess, is their number one. Not the greatest, but still okay. So against Jackson and Surtain, I think he's going to struggle.
Yeah.
Kelsey, number one fantasy tight end. Draft him in the second round. You're good to go. If you are okay with that, I mean, if he's there, I'll do it. But if he's not, I'm not. It's not really doesn't matter to me really. I like to do 2 running backs first, but if I can't, Kelsey there, that's fine.
Yeah, I definitely prefer RB anchor strategy too, typically, just because they're so hard to find in a redraft. But I do think Travis Kelce's going to have a ton of value this year because people are going to think that he's getting ready to fall off the cliff. And in my opinion, you can't draft that way because you're just making, predictions that aren't based on what's been happening consistently. And I think if Kelce was ready to fall off the cliff, like we would have seen it towards the end of the year last year. He's still that dude. I think he's still going to be that dude. So if he's there, if he falls into your lap, because tight ends are also kind of scarce. And if you want that competitive advantage, I think you still take him, and you still take him as tight end 1.
Yeah. Number one target, I believe, in this offense now.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs defense, I am not drafting him. I already told you about the Chiefs defense. They scare me in the secondary. Their front 7 is okay with Karlaftis, Dunlap, Chris Jones, Frank Clark. Frank Clark and Willie Gay. One of those guys goes down, though. It's very thin. You got your Wisconsin boy, Leo Chenal there, backing them up. But yeah, McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed at corner, Fenton, DeAndre Baker, Joshua Williams, who they drafted, and then Reed and Thornhill, Brian Cook they drafted as well. Very young, other than Justin Reed. But I don't like it. I don't like the linebackers are not the greatest, and the secondary.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm not touching them with a 10-foot pole. Very young, very unproven. And what I always look at in defenses, because I like to stream defenses typically week to week, strength of schedule, man. They're facing a meat grinder. So, yeah, stay away.
And then kicker Harrison Butker. Like him. I mean, he's been a number one scoring kicker before. The number one scoring kicker before. Regressed a little bit last year, but hey, maybe he becomes another top 5 kicker again, because maybe the Chiefs don't score as many touchdowns and they get into field goal range that we know. Butker can kick it from anywhere on the field. Has hit multiple 58-yarders in his career. So his range is pretty much unlimited. Yeah, I like him this year. Draft him. as a
Yep.
top 5 kicker, top 10.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we see a return to form for him.
Yeah, I concur. Rookies, not going to have much value in redraft, but Dynasty, I think you could. Wide receiver Sky Moore, he's 4th on the depth chart right now. I don't really like him that much. I didn't draft him in any of my rookie drafts this summer. I don't know if you did.
Yeah, so my rookie drafts haven't commenced yet. He is a guy I'm kind of cautiously optimistic about keeping my eye on. Where my picks are, I don't think he'll be in my range. But he is a guy that I'm very intrigued with in this offense, because I think people are going to look at him and they're going to think Tyreek Hill, because they're smaller, similar build. But he's not that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But what he is that he is a very good separator. He's a very good route runner, very good separator. Now, will there be value in that early on? Like we said, they got a lot of guys who you can kind of clean up underneath in Juju and Travis Kelce. But I think for Dynasty, for a young guy who's in a fantastic situation with Patrick Mahomes, I think you could see him be a very quality piece on your fantasy team in 2 or 3 years' time.
Yeah, I think it's a good option. Just thinking about the Dynasty League that I run, we added 4 taxi squad spots this year. I think that'd be a good option for Sky Moore. I know we lock it though week 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
First game kicks off that Thursday. Your taxi squads are locked in, and you can take the guys off, but you can't put them back on, and you can't add any more guys.
Yep. Yeah, that's the same thing we have. Yep.
And then the other rookie, Isaiah Pacheco. This is a guy I absolutely love in Dynasty. I added him. I think I have him in all 3 of my Dynasty leagues, dude.
Really?
Because especially two of them that I have, I was like you, I had Chris Carson, so I dropped Carson for Pacheco. And he's going to be on the bench for this year. But Rojo, it's only a 1-year deal, I think, or 2. Edwards-Helaire, I don't think his 5th-year option is going to get picked up.
No. Yeah.
He would be, what was it, 19? He's a 19 draft pick. So
yep.
This would be the year that his option would have to get picked up for next year. I don't think his option is going to get picked up. And he's a guy that was very productive at Rutgers. So taking a flyer on him. They also have Derek Gore, who they like. But, Pacheco's a guy I do like a lot that you can stash in Dynasty just for a flyer, for fun.
Yeah. And especially if you're in, bigger leagues, screw it. That's what's so much fun about fantasy, man. Especially, you get to the end of drafts and you're just like you like Isaiah Pacheco. You're gonna roster him in all your leagues. Just find guys you like and bet on them. See what happens.
Throwing darts. All right, that is the Kansas City Chiefs. Are you leaving? I thought you had to leave at.
Yeah, 5. I'm gonna hop. I didn't want to leave right in the middle of the Chiefs, so I was like, we'll stay for the Chiefs. But I'm gonna have to hop off before we finish the last 2. But I'll give a quick, my quick parting shots here. So I actually have, and I'm not sure what the odds are for this. The last time it's happened, whatever. But when I did my full-on record predictions in the playoff predictor, it came out to this, and I'm just going to stick with it. I have the Broncos and the Raiders finishing at 11-6 as well with the Chiefs. I have all 4 teams in the division making the playoffs. And part of that is, as you said earlier, you have them all starting out at 3-3. And I agree with it because, again, like I said before, any of these teams can beat any of the other teams on any given Sunday. terms of the Raiders, super impressed with their offseason. This is a team that some people were saying, like, you know what? They're kind of in the middle. Like, maybe just implode it, trade Carr for two firsts, and just move on. They doubled down, and they got some really key acquisitions that I'm excited about. I think it's going to make them competitive. And, of course, the Broncos, they're a complete team except for the QB position, and they fixed that with Russell Wilson. I think that people are going to remember just how good Russell Wilson can be. I think he's a bona fide top 10 QB. I think he's going to play like that this year, and I think their offense is going to look good. So I have both those teams at 11-6. AFC West is loaded, my man.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it. I have 10-7.
Nice. See, we're of like mind. You know, we got some concurrence here. All right, dude, I'm gonna hop off. I'll see you next week.
Appreciate it, man. We'll see you next day. The Broncos. So re-signings here: running back Melvin Gordon, linebacker Josie Jewell, linebacker Malik Reed, and safety Kareem Jackson. Free agent signings, trade acquisitions, a lot of quarterbacks. Josh Johnson, obviously the trade for quarterback Russell Wilson, offensive lineman Tom Compton and Billy Turner, defensive end Randy Gregory, D tackle DJ Jones, linebacker Alex Singleton, and corner K'Wan Williams. Losses, quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. They traded away quarterback Drew Lock. Lost wide receiver Deshaun Hamilton. Traded away tight end Noah Fant. All those guys in the Russell Wilson Seahawks deal. Offensive tackles Cameron Fleming and Bobby Massey. Defensive end Stephen Weatherly. They traded away D tackle Shelby Harris in that same deal. Linebacker Kenny Young and corners Bryce Callahan and Kyle Fuller. I don't think many of those losses are going to hurt them too much. The Fant and Harris in that trade are going to be big, obviously. But they got DJ Jones and to replace Shelby Harris. And I think it should be all right with Alberto and the other guys that they have there at the tight end position. Schedule wise, we have week 1 at Seattle, Monday night. Russell Wilson returns to the Seahawks, to Seattle. I have the Broncos going 10-7, and I have them winning that one. Week 2, home against the Texans. That's a win. Week 3, that's a home game against the Niners. Sunday night game. That's a win. Just like the Chiefs, the Broncos schedule is crazy. They go 4 out of their first 6 on primetime games. Monday night, Sunday night, Thursday night, Monday night, weeks 1, 3, 5, and 6. Week 4, loss at the Raiders. Week 5, loss home against the Colts on Thursday night. Week 6 is also a loss at the Chargers on Monday night. Week 7, they get the Jets at home. That's a win. Week 8, they go to London to play the Jags. That's an away game for the Broncos, and that is a win. They have week 9 bye. Week 10, they lose in Tennessee. They beat the Raiders at home. Week 11, they beat the Panthers in Carolina. Week 12, they beat the Ravens in Baltimore. Week 13, they beat the Chiefs. Week 14 on Sunday night in Denver. And then they lose 3 straight, home against the Cardinals, at the Rams, at the Chiefs. Then they finish up winning at home against the Chargers. So 10-7 for me, 3-3 in the division. Like I said, all of the teams are, like you heard, Logan had them at 11-6, so close there. Fantasy-wise, quarterback Russell Wilson. I'm not drafting him. I'm just not sure how productive he's going to be. They do have some good weapons on the offense, but I'm not that high on them. So I'm staying away from Russ, though. He's going to get you a starting quarterback value, top 12. So you can draft him. I am personally just staying away from him, though. Running backs, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, third. Look, Javonte is slated as number one, RB1 on the depth chart. I do like him. I still love him in Dynasty if you're having a startup or if you want to trade for him. Just don't trade the farm for him. I do like him in Dynasty still. I hate that they re-signed Melvin Gordon because it's going to limit Javonte's carries again because I think they're going to go back to similar split like they did last year. Maybe a little bit more in favor of Javonte, but still Melvin's going to get his carries. So I don't like either. Draft Javonte later than you think if he's available in the fourth round. That's the highest I would draft him probably, but he probably won't be there. So I'm probably sticking away from those two as well. Wide receivers, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick. Cortland Sutton, like it. Hopefully they can all stay healthy. Sutton should be a top 15, 20 wide receiver, so he should be pretty good there. He's the only guy that I actually really like. Jeudy and Patrick are so-so. Patrick was a guy that was crazy. I mean, he was just being productive when Sutton was out and Jeudy got hurt. But yeah, Jeudy, the guy I think of more as a wide receiver 3 than a 2 in fantasy anyways. So I'm sticking away from those two guys. But Sutton is a guy that I would draft as a low wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2. Tight end, Albert Owubanum. Albert O, I don't like him. Not touching him. He's not a starting tight end anyways. Russell has a history of liking tight ends. He had Jimmy Graham, Greg Olson, Gerald Everett as well, and Jacob Hollister and co. So he does have a history of liking to throw to tight ends. So I think Alberto does have value. Just do not draft him as a number 1 tight end. Draft him as a high-end number 2 that can maybe turn into a tight end 1 for you. The Broncos defense, yeah, it's not terrible. They do have some guys there, definitely. DJ Jones, Draymond Jones. The outside edge rushers, Chubb and Gregory, Benito, and Malik Reed, I think are very good. Singleton and Jewell in the middle, I like that pairing. And then the secondary should be pretty good. Darby on one side, Surtain on the other. They re-signed Kareem Jackson. They have Justin Simmons, Caden Stearns as well. They drafted Delaren Turner-Yell. They love Damari Mathis in training camp so far. K'Wan Williams they added as well to be their slot. Bless Austin they added. They have Michael Ojimadi. So I think this is going to be a pretty good defense. Top 10, maybe. I would be more comfortable calling them a top half of the league defense. So I'm probably not going to draft them. But if you get to the end of the draft and you don't have a defense yet, I would be confident in drafting the Broncos, though, however. Kicker Brandon McManus, I like him. I think all 4 kickers in this division are pretty good. McManus is a one-ball specialist, so he should be able to kick you some 50-yarders this year like he usually does every year. Not as high on him as Bucker or Hopkins, or probably on the same wavelength as Daniel Carlson, who we'll talk about with the Raiders. But yeah, McManus is a guy you can feel comfortable with streaming if he's available, and you stream kickers like Logan streams defenses. Rookies, tight end Greg Dulcich, I love him. Greg Dulcich is one of my favorite rookies this year in fantasy, specifically in Dynasty. I would definitely try to get Dulcich if you're looking for a backup tight end in Dynasty as a potential starter, because I think eventually, even as early as later this year, he could turn into the Broncos starting tight end. And I think with Russell Wilson and the tight end connection that I already mentioned before, Dulcich, I think, could be very, very good, and they could have their own maybe Travis Kelce opposite of the Chiefs in this division here. Wide receiver Montrell Washington. I don't know much about him. Came 5th round pick out of Samford, I believe. Doesn't have much value. He's slated actually as the Broncos' 5th wide receiver right now, so he should make the team, I think, being a relatively higher draft pick. So yeah, I probably wouldn't touch him in dynasty or redraft though. But I was intrigued to see him as the 5th wide receiver there. Okay, the Las Vegas Raiders here to wrap up re-signings. They only had 2, offensive tackle Brandon Parker and defensive tackle Jonathan Hankins. Otherwise, in the offseason, they re-signed they signed Derek Carr to an extension, Hunter Renfrow to an extension, and Darren Waller to an extension, as well as Max Crosby to an extension. So they locked their own guys up that were already on the roster, signing the no extensions instead of them being free agents and re-signing them. Free agent signings and trade acquisitions. Raiders very active this offseason. They signed quarterback Garrett Gilbert, quarterback Nick Mullins. They traded for quarterback Jarrett Stidham. They also signed running back Amir Abdullah and Brandon Bolden, fullback Jakob Johnson. They traded for Devontae Adams, wide receiver. They signed wide receivers Keelan Cole and Demarcus Robinson, tight end Jacob Hollister, defensive end Chandler Jones, defensive tackles Vernon Butler and Bilal Nichols. They signed linebackers Jayon Brown, Kyler Fackrell, and Kenny Young. Corner Anthony Averett. They traded for corner Rock Yassin, and they signed Duron Harmon. Losses, just as many came in as went out. So quarterback Marcus Mariota, running backs Peyton Barber and Jalen Richard, fullback Alec Ingold. They traded away wide receiver Brian Edwards, wide receiver Deshaun Jackson, wide receiver Zay Jones, guard Richie Incognito retired, defensive end Carl Nassib. They traded away defensive end Yannick Ngakoue, defensive tackle Quentin Jefferson, defensive tackle Gerald McCoy, defensive lineman Solomon Thomas, linebackers Nick Kwiatkowski, Corey Littleton, and KJ Wright retired. And then also losing corners Casey Hayward and Desmond Trufant. So a lot of in, a lot of out for Vegas, and reshaping the roster and Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels molds there. I like a lot of the moves. I think in terms of incoming moves, I think the linebackers interesting. Brown, Fackrell, and Young. I liked the guys that left, Kwiatkowski and Littleton. Rock Yassin, I think is going to be pretty good for them in a 1-for-1 trade. Ngakoue, they lost that trade, but Yassin should be okay. And then Jakob Johnson coming over from New England, replacing Alec Ingold. I think that's a decrease in value there. Ingold, very good. Going to help the Dolphins a lot this year. And the quarterbacks are interesting as well. Don't know who's going to be the starter or the main backup to Carr, because you have Gilbert, Mullins, and Stidham all there. So we'll have to see who wins that position. But yeah, Chandler Jones, biggest addition for sure. Going to be a bookend of Max Crosby for the next couple of years anyways. Losses, though, I think Mariota's going to be a bigger loss than they think, especially if Derek Carr goes down. That's going to hurt. Ngakoue, like I said, I think they lost that trade in a 1-for-1 weird one there, dumping salary. Richard was a big pass catcher out of the backfield. We'll see if Kenyon Drake takes up, or Brandon Bolden takes up more of those roles there. Like I said, Ingold, Incognito is going to be missed on that offensive line. And I think that's all the comments I have for their loss or off season there. But schedule wise, Raiders, I have them finishing last in the division, 9-8. Originally I had them at 7-10. I flipped a couple games though to get them to a 3-3 record in the division, like I have the other three teams at. So 9-8 though, that does not mean they make the playoffs. I think 9-8 is going to be tough to make it in this crowded AFC this year. But week 1 at the Chargers, that is a loss They beat the Cardinals at home in week 2. They beat the Titans in Tennessee week 3. They beat the Broncos week 4 at home. They lose to the Chiefs in Kansas City on Monday night. They have a week 6 bye, week 7. I have the Texans, Davis Mills, going into Allegiant Stadium and beating the Las Vegas Raiders in Vegas. Yes, you heard it here first. They lose in New Orleans. They win in Jacksonville. They beat the Colts at home. They lose to the Broncos in Denver. They beat the Seahawks in Seattle. They win at home against the Chargers. They lose in LA to the Rams on a Thursday night. They beat the Patriots at home on Sunday night. They lose to the Steelers in week 16 Saturday night Christmas Eve game in Pittsburgh there. They lose to the Niners at home, and then they beat the Chiefs at home week 18. Games I have started for the Raiders, weeks 1 through 3 at the Chargers, home against the Cardinals, at the Titans. That's a tough way to start, but I have them going 2-1. The only loss week 1 in LA. Week 5 is a primetime game. That's at the Chiefs. That's a loss. Week 8 at the Saints. That's another one that I think is a tough game in the Superdome there. Losing there. Also have started week 7 before that. Houston, the loss. I know that shocks a lot of people, but hey, I like the Texans and Davis Mills. Week 10 is the next one I have started. That's a home game against the Colts. Could potentially be a loss depending on what the Colts like with Matty Ice. Week 14 through 18 I have started. At the Rams, home against the Patriots, at the Steelers, home against the Niners and Chiefs. That's a very difficult schedule to end the year. And I have them going 2-3 in that stretch. 9-8 for the Raiders. Logan had them at 11-6, so close there again. Fantasy wise, Derek Carr, I like him. I don't love him right now, not yet. He's a guy that I don't think has been as consistent as I would like to see. Does have that Fresno State connection with Devontae. Loves throwing to Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow already. So I think he should be fine. I'll put him as a starter in fantasy. Top 12 quarterback, potential to be a top 7 or 5. Running backs, Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake. I don't like either. They drafted Jacobs' eventual replacement. They declined his 5th-year option. So, I don't like either of them this year, Jacobs or Drake. Wide receivers, Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, love them. Devontae might be a first-round pick. It'd be close. I think definitely he'll be in the 2nd round in most leagues. Renfrow is a guy that I love that I was right about him. He has shined, got an extension this offseason. I think you can draft him still and still be productive as your wide receiver too. And you can get him in the mid rounds in your draft. Tight end Darren Waller, he's a top 5 fantasy tight end. Carr loves to throw to him. So definitely draft him probably in the top 7 to 8 rounds. You're going to see Waller go off the board somewhere. Raiders defense. I think I actually like the Raiders defense more than I like the Broncos defense. Look, their pass rush duo, Crosby, Jones is fantastic. Hankins and Nichols in the middle there. Vernon Butler backing them up. I really like the linebackers. Perriman, Jayon Brown. They have Kenny Young. Micah Kaiser he just went on IR. He's done for the year. But they have some other guys. Fackrell there as well. Devon Diablo is a converted safety, so he's probably the weak point there. But Brown and Perriman, I think, should be fine. The secondary is good. Yassine Mullen on the outside, Averett, Nate Hobbs, Amik Robertson that they drafted, Cravon LeBlanc as well. I like their safeties, Abram and Merrig. They signed Harmon as well and drafted Tyree Gillespie. So I think there's definitely a lot of potential. I just like the edge rush duo here better than I do the Broncos, whereas the Broncos secondary is probably better. I think the linebackers wash out. but I do like the Raiders defense. Kind of like the same situation with Denver, though. If I'm not necessarily drafting them, but if I have to, if I need a defense late in the draft and the Raiders are the top one that's there, that's fine. I'm fine with drafting them. But you better get a different defense for that stretch in the end of the season there. Kicker Daniel Carlson, very good kicker there. I'm probably not drafting him. I'm comfortable with drafting him if I need to, similar to the defensive situation there. But he should be a guy that'll be a starter in most leagues, I think. Top 12 to 15 kicker there for Carlson, big leg as well. Rookies just one, running back Zamir White. You're not going to draft him in redraft this year, but I'm telling you, you better get him in your dynasty leagues because this man is going to be a monster in Vegas for the next couple of years. Drafted to replace Josh Jacobs, essentially. I'm telling you, get him in your dynasty leagues now so you'll have him for when he does start, I think, next season. And then next week we have we'll be back on Monday talking about the NFC North, Logan's division. We'll talk about the Packers, Vikings, Bears, and Lions. That's how it finished up. We'll have training camp week 3, all the news and notes from around the league. And that's all for the show today. Thank you, Logan, for being back on here. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media at FAA Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. FAApodcast.com is our website. You can check us out here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, etc. And make sure, like I mentioned earlier, check out our at FAA_bets Twitter to get all the futures that we've been putting out the last month. And we'll continue to put those out as the season comes up, and then we'll have weekly bets there. Thank you all, and we will see you back on Monday.